America great again.
RPN is not responsible for the views, actions, statements, or opinions of its guests, advertisers, or even its viewers. The information contained in this program is not to be confused with medical or legal advice. An appearance on this platform is not necessarily an endorsement, but as always, we encourage you to do your own research. Enjoy the show. Good evening, everyone. And of course, welcome back. Yes, my friends, it's time for another very exciting episode of Red Pill News Live. Hope you guys are having a lovely day, and I hope you are ready for what we're going to be talking about. Yes, it looks like I was onto something. President Trump seems to be ready to have Bill Pulte tear down some of the post-9/11 intel agency hijinks that we've been dealing with for the better part of 25 years. And there is an investigation going on right now in California into the election, not only across the whole state, but also in LA. I see we've got a viewer in the chat over there on YouTube from New Jersey. We are also going to be talking about Delaney. Going to be talking about the likelihood of the left-wing commie agitators being brought up on charges. I think it's only a matter of time. And we've got a little bit of conversation about fraud as well. So if you haven't yet, do me a favor. If you wouldn't mind, just hit that like button. You can also help us out by sharing the show. That would be awesome. And get ready for a great episode. All right, my friends, sit back, relax, and grab your popcorn because we're going to be right back after this. Recently, the U.S. Department of Energy announced $2.7 billion in contracts to restore domestic uranium enrichment capabilities. So here's the reality. The U.S. consumes over 50 million pounds of uranium every single year, but we produce less than 1 million pounds domestically. That leaves America 98% dependent on foreign suppliers for our supply. It's a critical vulnerability for national security, power generation, and advanced weapons systems. With Russia controlling much of the global enrichment capacity and escalating tensions in Iran threatening nuclear supply, the stakes could not be higher, which is why the White House has made it crystal clear. America must develop its own supply chain. And this is where Kirkstone Metals comes in. They trade under KSM in Canada and KSMCF in the US. They've got decades of uranium and junior mining expertise, and Kirkstone's leadership team knows how to turn exploration projects into real value. But the question is, can they do it again? Kirkstone controls two 100% owned uranium projects strategically located in the Athabasca Basin. This is the richest uranium district on the planet. And at their flagship Key Lake project, drilling has already hit high-grade uranium right near the surface, but the team truly believes the real prize lies deep underground. So using a playbook based on the decade's biggest discoveries, they're hunting the massive source below. So let's talk about the Athabasca Basin. It's home to multi-billion-dollar names like NextGen Energy and Denison Mines. The Athabasca Basin has delivered over 20% of the world's uranium discoveries, with an estimated $200 to $300 billion worth of uranium identified in the ground, and yet Kirkstone is still sitting at a market cap below $12 million. That's an enormous disconnect between what's found in this district and how some companies are valued today. On January 14th, the U.S. administration reinforced their commitment to domestic energy security, invoking Section 232 via an executive order. It's a formal declaration of resource independence. It's a mandate. Energy security is now national security, and the U.S. government is deploying its full fiscal and regulatory tools to secure the nuclear fuel cycle in North America. Kirkstone Metals is strategically positioned to capitalize on this shift. Now, uranium prices have surged, and some analysts project prices could exceed $100 per pound by 2026 as demand outpaces supply. Federal momentum has already begun to translate into dollars on the ground, including billions in planned funding for domestic uranium enrichment capacity. The sector is entering one of its most active drilling seasons in years, and with its flagship drill program approved, Kirkstone has exploration underway, and they're advancing with a focus on execution. Some companies operating in the district are valued at over $10 billion, and with the U.S. pushing for domestic uranium, Kirkstone could potentially become a leading beneficiary of the reshoring mandate. So if you want to learn more about this critical mineral story and about a team that has delivered big results in the past, check out the link in the description. And a very special thanks to Kirkstone Metals for making today's video possible. Oh, God, what happened there to my camera? Hold on just a second. Let me fix this up. And that's not going to be the right one, but this one definitely is the right one. There we go. All right, everyone, welcome back. Thank you so much for being here. I need to give a big thank you to Cheatin' Old Joe, who says, have a little extra to share finally. You do a great job. Thank you so much, Joe. Really appreciate that generous $50 rant. And also thank you to Sean Joe over on Pilled for 2 cookies. So something really weird is happening on Getter. The way that I've been streaming for, gosh, going on 5 years now, suddenly stopped working this week, and so I have started streaming a different way over on Getter. It looks like it's actually working. People are over there. Nobody's chatting, but that's totally normal for Getter. No matter where you're at, thank you very much for hanging out with us today, and we do have a lot to talk about. So let us begin, first of all, by checking in with the good people of Chicago. Unfortunately for Chicago, the actions of their political leadership is starting to catch up with them in a way that I think they thought was never possible. You know, there's only so much crime and devastation and just abject misery that people and organizations are willing to put up with. And that is exactly what we have here with the Chicago Bears. The Chicago Bears are an institution in the city of Chicago. Well, that is probably not going to be for much longer because, in fact, what it looks like is the Chicago Bears have just made a deal to actually leave the state of Illinois. The entirety of my life, Chicago and the Bears have been something that you could never possibly imagine as having been split up. But now, because it sucks so bad in Chicago, because the taxes are out of control, because their leadership are open communists, they have just made an announcement to build a new stadium in Hammond, Indiana. So this is a statement from the Chicago Bears chairman, George H. McCasey, and their president and CEO, Kevin Warren. Yesterday, the Chicago Bears Board of Directors met and voted to advance our stadium development project in Hammond, Indiana, with the exact site to be selected. We believe a world-class stadium project in Hammond will transform the region, connecting northwest Indiana to the south side of Chicago through the Loop and across neighborhoods and suburbs stretching north of the city. It will bring Chicagoland together and deliver new opportunities to its residents and businesses. Of course, it won't be in Chicago, so they will no longer be the Chicago Bears. The Bears are now going to be the Bears, but what's the accent in Indiana? It's totally different in Indiana. It'll be the Bears. It'll just have to be the Bears. All right. Now, also in Chicago, something strange happened. A bomb squad visited a vehicle on the expressway in Cook County. There was the report of an explosion on this Chicago highway. And when the bomb squad got there, they did find a dead person, and looks like they were surrounded by bullet casings. So this Illinois highway got shut down in both directions earlier yesterday as the technicians and the Bureau of Alcohol, Tobacco, and Firearms and Explosives investigated this vehicle that was parked on the road. So the highway closed down approximately 10 a.m. It didn't open back up until almost 7 p.m. And according to authorities, this person was dead inside and he was surrounded by shell casings. They have not yet reported a cause of death, but I mean, you know, given the circumstances, you can kind of figure it out yourself. Initially, the vehicle was seen on the Eisenhower Expressway and they heard an explosion. Video from the sky shows law enforcement officers, including one in a bomb suit, investigating the car, and there are other clips that have made their way out as well. Let's take a look at this.
This pocket-sized
just after we get past this
so
commercial.
Powerful, It strips a decade of grime off concrete in 30 seconds.
We are following some
Okay, turn the sound back on.
breaking news, as I mentioned, along the Eisenhower, Skyfox over 290 near Wolf Road. Right now, we know all lanes of the Eisenhower are closed in both directions. This is the view of what we have going on right now, and we're still trying to sort through it with you. We have reached out to police. Looks like one vehicle there is on one of the sides of the road, and 3 state police officers are circling that vehicle. One of them appears to be in a hazmat suit. Another one there earlier was carrying what appeared to be a shield. And then we have a plainclothes officer as well. All doors of that vehicle are open. The hood is popped. We're not quite sure what happened. Doesn't appear to have been involved in any type of accident. But again, both sides of I-290, the Eisenhower, are closed near Wolf Road right now. So you can assume the backup is probably all.
So, yeah, don't know what happened, but obviously nothing good happens when somebody sets off a bomb in the middle of an expressway. So waiting to see what happens with that. But, man, Chicago is just not doing too good. All right, but in Arkansas, we do have some really good news. Now, I'm sure you guys remember the case of a man who was running for sheriff in Arkansas because Aaron Spencer was his name. Aaron Spencer, in the middle of the night, found that the man who previously had worked for the sheriff's department where he lived and had abused his 14-year-old daughter, raped her, he had come in the middle of the night and kidnapped Aaron Spencer's daughter. Aaron Spencer proceeded to call the police, called 911, and then he pursued the man's vehicle down the road. He ran him off the road, and when he confronted him, the man got out of the vehicle and approached Aaron Spencer, used his Second Amendment right, and saved his daughter's life, stopped her from being abused yet again. Well, Aaron was charged with murder. Initially, it was first-degree murder, and then they lowered the charges to second-degree murder. Well, the judge overseeing this case yesterday actually dropped the second-degree murder charges against Aaron Spencer. So now he is not simply a man who is charged with second-degree murder running for sheriff and likely to become the sheriff come November. He is just a man running for sheriff who has stood up against a corrupt establishment. So the reason they dropped the charges is because law enforcement lost a dash cam memory card that was likely to have been captured from the night that this event took place. This was in October of 2024. And the man that was shot and who had raped the daughter of Aaron Spencer was a man by the name of Michael Fosler. Here you can see on screen, that is Aaron Spencer in happier days. Well, you know what? He's got happy days ahead of him now because he's no longer going to be charged with murder. The trial was slated to go forward in just a couple of weeks. So they said the court finds that the conduct by law enforcement was so egregious that dismissal of this case is warranted. Now, as I said, just a couple of weeks out, Aaron was slated to go on trial for the second-degree murder charge for allegedly gunning down Fosler on October 8th of 2024 because he caught him kidnapping his daughter, and the man was likely to rape her yet again. He had previously groomed his daughter secretly and taken advantage of her. Now, the night of, Spencer woke up at 1 a.m., he found his then 13-year-old daughter was vanished. She was just gone from her room. And then he soon found her in the passenger seat of the car that Fosler was driving. He went out on the streets and told the police, I'm going to look for my daughter. He saw Fosler's vehicle and saw that his daughter was clearly in the passenger seat. So like I said, he forces the truck off the road, and then he shoots the sexual abuser, kills him right then and there. The man got exactly what he deserved, and prosecutors argued, shockingly, I mean, I don't know how they could have possibly come to this conclusion, except for the fact that Mr. Fosler was a known abuser. He was a sex offender, and he had already raped Aaron Spencer's daughter previously. But, of course, Aaron Spencer had nothing to do with the kidnapping that night. Anyways, the prosecutors alleged that Spencer had actually planned to murder this event and that he should have called the cops when the car chase actually began, but instead he chose to take the matter into his own hands. Now, if there's anybody here who's a father, like me, Of course, you know, you call the cops when you call the cops, but there are certain times where you take action. And when you see your 13-year-old daughter in the truck of a man who already groomed and abused her, you do what you need to do to make sure that child is safe. And I think Aaron did the right thing. And I think that undeniably the judge did the right thing in this case. Now, of course, he pled not guilty to the crime. He always claimed that he acted appropriately. He was only saving his child from a predator. Had it not been for the fact that Fosler had come and stolen his daughter in the middle of the night with the plan of abusing her further, the man would have been alive, and he probably just would have been in prison. Spencer's attorneys, of course, have not denied that he shot and killed Fosler. It's obvious. I mean, he never denied it himself. But he's a protective dad. He did what needed to be done to make sure that his child was safe. And as a result of this case, Spencer made the decision to run for sheriff in Lone Oak County, Arkansas. And he actually was the #1 vote getter in the primary. So he already had unseated the sheriff. It was just a matter of time before the full election took place in November. He said during his campaign, he said, "I'm the father who acted to protect his daughter when the system failed." And when he won that Republican primary in March, this is a Republican district, so he was expected to win the election in November. I'm certain that he will, especially now. And I'm really proud of the legal system in this sense. There's not a lot of times that I feel I can say this, but it operated appropriately. And I believe that the loss of that memory card by the sheriff's department was not just an egregious act of malfeasance. I think that they were intentionally trying to lose the evidence which would have exonerated Aaron Spencer, because as I said, Mr. Fosler had a connection to the Lone Oak County Sheriff's Department. So it seemed like they were kind of rallying around Fosler and trying to do whatever they could to put Spencer in prison. So thank God. This was an incredible, incredible thing. So happy to be able to report it. All right, now we're going to talk a little bit about the situation with immigration, because we do have some good news in regards to keeping America safe and helping to get rid of these illegal aliens that are clogging up the system and taking advantage of it. Now, yesterday, during a hearing, Senator Eric Schmidt went off on Senator Mazie Hirono, one of the stupidest members of the United States Senate. This was a late-night hearing, and she was pretty much defending violent, illegal, criminal aliens. And we're talking about all of them. The people who murder Americans, the people who rape Americans, the people who defraud Americans. This was the Senate Judiciary Committee hearing, and the title of it was Protecting American Citizenship 3, I guess there's the third one, Denaturalization and its Constitutional Limits. Now, Hirono, as she tends to do, went on an unhinged tirade, a series of disjointed ideas mixed in with words that were handed to her by her congressional staff, and she accused the Trump administration of terrorizing immigrant communities and then defending immigrants who are convicted of heinous crimes. And of course, as we know, they make no distinction between legal immigrants and illegal aliens, although legally they are two different classes of people. I happen to be the only naturalized citizen sitting on this committee, and I am horrified by the implication that naturalized citizens basically get second-class citizenship, she screeched. As a naturalized citizen, I'm proud of it. I can't think of a more undemocratic, anti-American thing to do to someone who chooses to become a U.S. citizen, to hold this over their heads and treat us like second-class citizens, she said. Now, the hearing was focusing on Senator Schmidt's Stop Citizenship Abuse and Misrepresentation Act, the SCAM Act, which is an act that will expand the federal government's authority to revoke citizenship of certain individuals who demonstrate through their involvement with fraud, other serious felonies, and terrorist organizations that they never actually met the statutory requirements for citizenship, thereby making it easier to denaturalize them. I believe this did actually pass. Now, Mazie Hirono claims that this act would actually impose even more requirements on naturalized citizens than we do citizens. Well, no shit, Sherlock. I mean, why wouldn't we impose more requirements on naturalized citizens than natural-born citizens? These are people who do not come from our culture. These are people who do not come from our country. And if they want to become a citizen of the United States, it shouldn't just be a hop, skip, and a jump and a rubber stamp to allow them to become part of the fabric of American society. We can talk about people 10 years later who commit murder, she said, heinous acts, but the Scam Act also allows people to be prosecuted for welfare fraud. She attacks the bill by saying this is a bad thing, claiming that anybody could be accused of welfare fraud, and 24 million people who are naturalized in our country are going to be subjected to this kind of so-called oversight. Now, I think everybody here knows. Of course, anybody can be accused of welfare fraud, but being accused of welfare fraud is not to be convicted of welfare fraud. In order to be convicted of welfare fraud, you got to show with evidence that you actually committed welfare fraud, just like an American citizen would have to go through that exact same process. To say the least, it's more than astounding. It should be unconstitutional, she said. Well, it should not be unconstitutional, but of course, if the Democrats in the deep state were successful in making it unconstitutional, well, then that would make it easier for these fraudsters to stay in the United States.
To silence that hissing. If you notice your...
Well, thank you very
Okay, I want to hear Mazie Hirono for just a moment.
much. I think this is a fairly bizarre hearing, to tell you the truth. So President Trump spent all of 2024 insisting that he was going to go after immigrants who commit serious crimes, the so-called worst of the worst. And yet he, like with almost everything else that Trump has said in 2024, and before that, I might add, that was a lie. Instead, his regime has indiscriminately gone after all immigrants, not just those who are undocumented, but legal immigrants and people.
Okay, so this is not her freaking out. Let me get to the point where she actually asks a question of the man who has come to testify.
So what do you think about this effort? Like efforts like the act that I just talked about, the
Scam Act.
You mentioned it.
Maisie.
What do you think about this effort to try and impose even more requirements?
All right, now, I thought that they got 5 minutes, but she's already been speaking for 4 minutes and 30 seconds.
Naturalized citizens than we do on citizens.
So I agree, Senator Hirino, that this is of a piece with the war on immigration, including the war on legal.
Okay, so he's obviously a leftist as well. So Eric Schmidt, who I think will probably be a better exercise in restraint than Hirono, had to clap back against her. And of course, when you are the person who wrote this bill and you're a real American, you're a natural-born American, you've got a different take on it than somebody who is not an American citizen.
Speaking of astounding,
who has committed acts of fraud. Let's take a listen.
Your comments are astounding, Senator. You mentioned a few words, horrific. I think to the American taxpayer that's been ripped off by people who came to this country, to rip them off, that's horrific. You talk about bizarre. No, it's my time now. It's my time. You went over time. It's
reclaiming my time.
Bizarre is the idea that you would be here in this committee defending violent murderers from being deported, that you would be defending violent rapists from being deported, that you would defend people who took advantage of the good people of this country of their taxpayer dollars. That is bizarre. A terrorist who kills American citizens, you know what's bizarre is your defense of that. So forgive me if your 24 million Americans should be, or naturalized citizens should be afraid. That's ridiculous. You have no. You have nothing but fear-mongering here. What I'm saying in this bill is, if you do those things to the American people, if you take advantage of taxpayers, you're not recognized. If you commit a terrorist act, if you commit wholesale welfare fraud, within 10 years, you're damn right we're deporting you.
Yeah, the only thing I don't like about this is that there's only that 10-year window, okay? Like, if you have a criminal record, I don't believe you should be allowed to emigrate to the United States. If you emigrate to the United States and you commit a crime, I think you should automatically be deported. I don't care what that crime is. Okay, traffic offenses, I will give you some leeway there. But if you commit a criminal act and it is necessary to prosecute you and process you through the judicial system, I think you should automatically lose your right to be here. And I think there's plenty of other countries around the world that would agree with me. Now, in one of those countries where they certainly do not take any shit, and they also don't allow Muslims to emigrate. They certainly don't allow fraudsters to emigrate. It's Russia. I love Russia. Russia is based. Okay, call me a Russian bot all you want, but they've got their country on lock. All right, they are happy to allow people of good moral character to emigrate there. If you believe that you are a victim of an unjust and cruel corporate establishment, such as a government that is forcing you to engage in activities that go against your religion or go against your beliefs, you can emigrate to Russia. They'll be happy to have you there because they want people who are going to add to the fabric of society. If only Russian wasn't such a difficult language to learn. I would still love to visit Russia. And that is the point of this story right here, because it looks like we are on the cusp of realizing the dream of John F. Kennedy. There was at one time a plan that he was cooking up with Nikita Khrushchev to make a peace bridge between Alaska and Russia. And, of course, it never came to fruition because John F. Kennedy was assassinated. But when it was revealed with the release of the JFK files, almost immediately President Trump and President Putin began the process of seeking exactly how something like that could take place. Now, Putin's envoy, Dmitriev, has just publicly announced yesterday that a design agreement, which would actually be a tunnel and not a bridge, across the Bering Strait linking the United States and Russia, is actually about to happen. The United States and Russia are going to be signing an agreement in St. Petersburg during the International Economic Forum to make this a reality. Now, this international forum is taking place right now, June 3rd to June 6th. Russia is holding it in St. Petersburg, and a key portion of the platform is for a dialogue between governments, business, and expert community members. Now, of course, the war with Ukraine is still going on, but I think that ultimately this is the goal of the United States. This is the goal, to build a bridge or a tunnel, as it were, to create a pathway for peace between East and West. Now, in the Bering Strait, you will have this tunnel being built. And let me go here to Kirill Dmitriev's statement, which is reported by Sputnik. What? Did they took it down? Are you kidding me? They actually took it down. The tunnel through the Bering Strait, which will connect Russia and Alaska, will be built, and an agreement to continue the design will be signed on June 5th, that's today, at this forum. This was stated by the special representative of Russian President Putin, Kirill Dmitriev. As for the tunnel, we will have news tomorrow. We are signing an agreement that we will continue the design of the tunnel. There will be a tunnel. And according to him, this will be one of the big infrastructure projects between our country. Now, this statement is in Russian, so I will have to translate. You know what? And it's the statement that I just read. But yes, this is for real. This is actually happening. At some point in the future, guys, in the same way we can just go to Canada, we're going to be able to just go to Russia. I think that will be so cool. So we are talking about the tunnel under the Bering Strait between Russian Chukotka and American Alaska. The idea is old. Such a transition was first discussed seriously in the end of the 19th century. After the breakup of the USSR, negotiations between Russia and the USA periodically revived, but after 2014, the annexation of Crimea and a sharp collapse in relations, the project actually went into political permafrost. Now, it's been brought into the world again, already against the backdrop of new contacts between Moscow and Washington after returning Donald Trump to power. For the Kremlin, this is a convenient picture. Not sanctions, not Ukraine, not isolation, but a supposedly big infrastructure deal with America. Now, I have no idea what this would look like, but you may remember when the plans were revealed from the JFK files. It'll be somewhat different than that. But think like the Channel between France and Great Britain. It'll be something more akin to that. Curtis Good. Thank you, Curtis, over on Rumble. Good evening, Zach. I'm listening to you while I'm driving back home to Texas from Michigan. Excellent, man. Drive safe. Please do. All right. Now, also on the subject of immigration, we have a new rule that was just announced by the DHS. This rule will limit the work authorizations of both lawful migrants and, more importantly, illegal aliens. So this new rule would limit the immigrants' abilities to legally work here in the United States. It would supposedly make it harder for a number of different categories of migrants. Notably, this is going to be people who are here in the U.S. on, say, humanitarian parole. This would also include DACA recipients. If they are of this particular status, it would make it much more difficult for them to obtain or to renew their legal work authorization. Now, this was a rule that was published earlier today in the Federal Register. It's going to affect people who have temporary protection to enter the country and to not be deported. So that, again, includes immigrants on humanitarian parole and deferred action recipients, the DACA program. U.S. Citizenship and Immigration Services has stated that in their executive summary for this proposed rule, these changes were designed to comply with an executive order President Trump actually signed back in 2025 on the first day of his second term. And that executive order was titled Protecting the American People Against Invasion. So the new rule would also require that immigrants seeking renewal of their work permits must be employed by or seek employment with an employer who uses E-Verify. So the Department of Homeland Security is also clarifying that they want to limit the eligibility for discretionary employment authorization for aliens who are paroled into the United States temporarily. So aliens who are applying for employment authorization who admit to committing or have been arrested for or who have been convicted of certain criminal acts do not warrant a favorable exercise of discretion. So that means even if you're here and you have previously had the right to work, if it turns out that you've also been somebody who has broken the law, that means that they're just not going to allow you to do that. You're going to have to go ahead and go home. Now, when we skip on over to Texas, we see the actions of President Trump taking hold in Dallas suburbs. Now, this is related to the crackdown on H-1B visa abuse. In certain areas of Texas, there has been tremendous growth. A lot of multi-million-dollar homes have been built, and they've been moved into by people who were here with H-1B visas. But because of all of these visa restrictions that have been put into place and people being unable to just simply renew those visas while remaining in the United States, you are having a major cool down in the housing market in the Texas suburbs. And it's also happening in other places. But Texas is particularly hard hit because there are so many Indians who have moved there who had H-1B visas previously. So a lot of these Indian tech workers were turbocharging the prices of homes in the Dallas suburbs, but now they're gone. They have been forced to leave. And so you've got a major correction in the housing market that's currently taking place. For many years, the suburbs of North Dallas were pretty much ground zero for one of the most extraordinary housing booms in America in history. You had subdivisions that were multiplying at almost exponential rates, and as a result, prices were soaring. Builders couldn't put up homes fast enough, and of course, a lot of these people were getting their homes financed with either a $0 down loan or no interest loans. We've talked about this on a number of occasions. The lenders that were basically giving them more favorable terms than if they had been American citizens. The engine behind all of this growth was always the exponential wave of Indian-born H-1B visas that were coming into the United States tech market. They were taking jobs from Americans, and as the jobs were being added in the tech sector, there was simply no room for Americans, and they were only going to these H-1B visa holders. Oftentimes in American tech companies, you have Indians, which will take on positions of leadership. And once that happens, they almost always will fire natural-born American citizens and then replace them with H-1B visa holders. This corporate corridor that was opened up, and especially in Texas, attracted so many company headquarters and relocations because Texas is also a good place for taxes. It was more than any other place in the world from 2018 until today. So now you have these large subdivisions with beautiful palatial homes and in many instances, no people to live inside them. So, you know, when an H-1B visa holder leaves the United States and just gives up their mortgage, that's going to go back to the bank. And of course, the bank is going to want to pass that home off as quickly as possible, because if you suddenly have a bunch of foreclosures on your hands, it's not going to be good for the housing market. Everybody saw what happened in 2008 and 2009. So over 52,000 tech jobs were cut during the first 3 months of this year. And by early summer of this year, the tech industry jobs had gotten even worse. More than 123,000 were gone. Now, that's a symptom of these H-1B visa holders leaving the country and heading back to India, but it's also a symptom of AI taking a lot of these people's jobs in these tech sectors, and there no longer being a need for this many bodies. If we look at Collin County, this is the suburban epicenter of the boom. Home prices have fallen almost 9% year over year as of February, and you've had more than double the 4% drop that was recorded across the broader Dallas-Fort Worth metro area. The retreat of Indian buyers from the market, who were once the most dominant force in home sales in the area, is starting to feel a little bit like a release valve, especially if you're a natural American-born individual who's looking to start a family and who's looking to buy a house without paying through the nose. The federal government granted nearly 32,000 H-1B approvals in the Dallas area during the Biden administration. That was more than Silicon Valley. That was more than Seattle. It was more than San Francisco. It was more than Washington, D.C. And now we see that only New York City was a higher proportion of H-1B visas moving into the area. So the workers who arrived on those visas came into subdivisions like the one I mentioned before, also Prosper, Frisco, Salina. The population in these places more than tripled in just the last 5 years. Collin and Denton counties were the fastest growing in the entire country, and that population has topped off past 1 million if we take a look at recent census data. Collin County's Indian-born population averaged more than 116,000 residents annually in the 5 years through 2024. That was up a lot higher than the 70,000 to the preceding 5-year period. In Frisco, a city of 235,000 residents, they're about 30 miles north of downtown Dallas, the share of Indian residents ballooned from about 6% in the early 2010s to nearly 20% by the mid-2020s. So builders started tailoring their homes to this particular clientele. You had one North Texas builder, Zach Schneider of Tradition Homes. He was designing model homes with north-facing puja rooms for Hindu prayer and optional spice kitchens for buyers from India. When peak demand was hitting, South Asians represented 70% of the company's sales. And by early this year, that figure had fallen below 30%, and he had a backlog of 125 luxury homes that were just kind of sitting there under construction. Now, the policy response from Washington has been sweeping. President Trump raised minimum salary thresholds for H-1B visa holders. He put in new fees, and he directed the program to prioritize only the highest paid applicants. The Department of Labor launched Project Firewall. This was an enforcement initiative targeting alleged employer abuse in the system. And by September of last year, President Trump signed a proclamation imposing that $100,000 fee on all new H-1B visa petitions. That was a measure that effectively priced out a lot of the staffing firms and the mid-tier contractors that had been the biggest sponsors of Indian workers in Dallas market and in many other markets around the country. They also directed the Department of Housing and Urban Development to bar non-permanent residents, which includes H-1B visa holders, from gaining access to FHA-insured mortgages. That began in May of last year. And according to data from a consulting firm, the share of FHA loan volume that was issued to non-permanent residents fell from 6% in April to less than 1% by June. Virtually now, it's 0%, and here we are. So the policy shift comes to as it was revealed that the electronic H-1B visa registration system was heavily gamed by middlemen so that they can increase the odds of selection. If we look at a single fiscal year, federal data revealed that one individual was registered by various companies 83 times, and there were over 9,000 individuals in the system that had more than 5 registration each. So Bloomberg estimated roughly 15,500 visas, about 1 out of every 6 awarded, were obtained during this period where staffing firms were colluding to manipulate the lottery system. At the state level, Governor Abbott ordered a freeze on new H-1B visa petitions by state agencies and public universities in January, and Attorney General Ken Paxton launched his own probe into the program that exact same month, fanning out civil investigative demands to nearly 30 North Texas businesses who were suspected of committing fraud or abuse. So what we see happening in Dallas is, likely to happen in other metro areas around the country where H-1B visa holders have been propping up the real estate market and effectively shutting out Americans. Roughly 3/4 of H-1B workers approved in the fiscal year of 2023 were born in India, and denial rates are spiking. We've talked about this before. 25% during President Trump's first term in 2018. It was only 2% denial rate under Biden by 2021, and now it's on the rise again. We've almost completely shut down the system. States that are most expected to have a policy shift include New York and New Jersey, California, Washington, Virginia, and Texas. All of them are major hubs for H-1B and the tech industry. In markets like Seattle, you've got Amazon and Microsoft. They are heavily drawing on this visa pipeline. And analysts project home prices are going to cool down there, too, by at least 2 to 5%, as H-1B dense neighborhoods are, of course, not allowed to recontract. Florida International University professor Eli Baracha, who co-authored a 2025 paper on immigration and housing markets published in the Journal of Real Estate Research, told Bloomberg that the downturn in markets like Dallas could be a lot steeper than we see right now. These H-1B visas are the #1 converters of potential home buyers to actual home buyers. But when you get fewer people receiving H-1B visas, you get an obvious, immediate negative surprise because you have housing that was already being built for people who are no longer going to be coming into the market. This is a pattern that echoes what we've seen in other areas. Canada imposed a 2-year cap on international students back in 2024, specifically because we had housing pressure up there. Rents there were moderated as a result. Spain also halted its golden visa program for property buyers, and Switzerland is set to hold a referendum on a population cap this summer as well. All of this is good. If we take a look in Salina, Texas, a subdivision called Mustang Lakes, a person by the name of Ravi Vavalala bought a 5-bedroom home in late 2023 for $895,000. He is an Indian-born, naturalized citizen, and he was laid off from his tech job in March. So he put the house on the market, and he had to reduce the asking price on multiple occasions, and now it's listed at $873,000, and he is struggling to compete against builder incentives and a lot of other people who are trying to sell their home. Welcome to the market you created. The market sucks, and it is because we've had far too many people coming in here who were given too many incentives to make it possible for them to take advantage of our system. All right. Now, we also have another announcement, this time from FinCEN and the Treasury Department. They are advising all financial institutions and banks to scrutinize and report illegal alien activity, which includes off-the-book payments, identifying fraud, and the use of ITINs. This is the announcement that we learned was coming the other day, but now it's actually being published in the Federal Registry. FinCEN has now also a list of likely industries where banks are going to see this type of behavior, and that includes agriculture, construction, hospitality, and service as common at-risk and complicit employers. So Scott Paine said to the banks that President Trump has done more than anyone in history to secure our nation's borders. Part of that effort includes securing our financial system, and this administration will not allow illegal aliens to abuse financial institutions to steal billions of dollars from hardworking American taxpayers. The advisory also highlights how these schemes involve a complicit labor broker who sets up a shell company, often with unregistered money services businesses, providing off-the-books payroll for or payment processor services for complicit employers and their unlawful alien workers. So the advisory calls attention for the banks to identify theft and payroll fraud as key features in schemes by complicit employers in those industries I mentioned above. And, of course, the advisory encourages banks to consider using the use of an ITIN when applying appropriate risk-based procedures for customer due diligence in light of the totality of other factors and available information. So an ITIN is what you use when you don't have a social security number, and it's what the Biden administration was handing out like lollipops during that 4-year hellscape. So I think it's only a matter of time before we start seeing this have a measurable effect. I need to say thank you so much to Untamed Nation for sending a raid over. Thank you, my friend. Also, thank you to Texas Jules. Texas, good to see you. I live in Frisco, North Dallas, and I work for a builder. You're right on the money here, Zach. Short-term pain for long-term gain. We need to adjust this. Absolutely. The housing market was insane for a long time. We saw it down here in Florida. It was obviously just as bad in Texas, maybe even more so because you had all those H-1B visa holders coming in, making tons of money and getting free things from the government. We definitely have immigrants here in Florida, but they're just not nearly as deep. Back during the Biden administration, of course, we had all kinds of illegals that were living here. I would go to Walmart. I've told this story so many times. I go to Walmart. I couldn't walk through there without hitting my elbows on people who didn't know how to speak English. It was just a sea of brown people talking about things in Hispanic languages that I didn't recognize. All right. Now, before we continue with our next clip, this is going to be an announcement related to immigration. Wow, what is going on with my camera? Okay, now it works. That's great. All right. I have a very brief message from our friends over here on Rumble. So let me take an opportunity to ask you to hit that like button. Oh, hang on. I guess I need to. Okay, make sure that my microphone is working properly. Yes, okay, that's good. All right, so of course everything goes to shit when I need it to work. All right, so as you guys know, crypto is big, and I'm sure you hear a lot about it, but here's something that I think a lot of people miss. Crypto was created so that you could control and own your own money. The 2008 financial crisis is what brought on the advent of Bitcoin. They designed it as an alternative to banks. So instead of having a bank hold on to your money, delaying transfers, limiting access, you would be in control of it. Now, if you've ever had to wait for a transfer to clear, you know exactly what I'm talking about. There's nothing worse than not being able to have access to your own money. Fast forward to today, and everybody's heard of crypto, but you might think that it's complicated to get involved. And this is why Rumble Wallet is so awesome, because it takes all the complexity out of it. It makes it super simple. You can choose what you want to use: Bitcoin, dollar-backed stablecoins, even digital gold backed by real gold. It's not complicated to set up. It connects directly with MoonPay, so you can use your bank account, your credit card, your debit card. You're up and running in just a couple of minutes. And then once you get set up, you can also use the Rumble Wallet to tip and support your favorite creators on the platform, whether it's me or somebody else. I appreciate it. I know they do. So you can do this right now. Scan that QR code on the screen or just click the link in the description and download the Rumble Wallet. From there, you can get your wallet set up, tap buy, and then you're in the game. And in just a few minutes, you can go from hearing about crypto to actually owning some. Thank you so much to Rumble. And what is your name? Baseball. I can't hear you, Baseball, but I can see your chat over there on Getter. Thanks for being here. All right, so Senator Eric Schmidt announced, along with a whole host of other people, finally, the Senate has taken action. They have decided that it's time to start doing their job. They passed the legislation necessary to fund ICE and Customs and Border Patrol. But along with that comes a provision that allows them to surge ICE into sanctuary jurisdictions so that they can arrest illegal and criminal aliens inside these sanctuary cities, even as the Democrats are releasing them from prison. Now, this is something we've needed for a long time. We finally got the $70 billion for the various agencies. This is going to fund them through the end of President Trump's term in office. And this provision is from Eric Schmidt. It will allow for these criminals to be arrested, and it will stop us from having to worry about them getting out into the community.
All right, 5 a.m., we just wrapped up a 19-hour session on the floor to get the ICE funding done for the remaining 3 years of the president's term. The Democrats blocked ICE funding. They wanted to fund the police. Now they're wanting to fund ICE. So we got that done, $70 billion. That'll be for Border Patrol and ICE. Also in there's my provision that for the first time now allows ICE to pick up criminal illegal aliens as they're being released from prison in sanctuary cities. Yes, that's happening. Rapists and murderers who are illegal aliens are being released by the Democrats in sanctuary jurisdictions, and so now we're going to deport these people. So a big reform that's in this, and we got it done despite the Democrats' obstruction.
All right, so that is really good news. Now, I wanted to show you exactly what was included in the bill. Okay, so it passed 52-47. Fully funds the Department of Homeland Security and ICE. You've got $38.6 billion for ICE, $22.6 billion for Border Patrol, and $5 billion for DHS. Now, this is obviously got to go to the House, but the House has already agreed that they're just going to go ahead and pass it. I don't think that we need to worry about them not passing it. But you know what? Who knows? I mean, like, stranger things have happened. So we'll see what's up. Now, also, though, included in the Senate version of the bill was a bit of a poison pill. Bill Cassidy, the guy that was just primaried in Louisiana, has fully revealed himself as somebody who never gave a shit about the people of America. And Senator Rand Paul, during this 19-hour session last night, caught wind of what Cassidy was trying to do. He was trying to include a provision in the bill which would have been very, very bad. Now, Rand Paul called Bill Cassidy out on the floor of the Senate, and President Trump took notice, and he, in a rare moment, he praised Rand Paul. Take a listen.
What we've got here is a failure to understand what's going on. We've been at it for 18 hours. There is no weaponization fund in this bill. Let me repeat, there is no weaponization fund in this bill. Ironically, the author of this amendment is the one creating a weaponization fund and directing it to pay his chosen group of people. This amendment is nothing more than a poison pill that would prevent us from doing what is at hand, and that is securing our border, enforcing our immigration laws. Democrats and some others refuse to vote for $1 for the border. Republicans have stepped up to do the job Democrats refuse to do. We cannot let them hijack this bill at the last moment with an unrelated issue.
So, from Rand Paul's tweet, there should never be a situation where any Republican who campaigned on POTUS's America First agenda turns around and rallies with Democrats to poison pill a straightforward bill funding ICE and Border Patrol. I shot down this unrelated amendment, and we got the funding passed.
Mr. President.
Senator from Louisiana.
Mr. President.
And this is Bill Cassidy, the guy who was trying to slip that poison pill in.
This is germane to the bill. It's in the judiciary section. And by the way, it does not detract from our ability. And there is a fund out there that could be funded to use as an anti-weaponization fund. We should make the same ability the same access to redress to the officers who protected us. I urge passage.
So he apparently wants to give money to the Capitol Police who were present on January 6th, the same Capitol Police that murdered Trump supporters.
Senator from Kentucky.
This amendment would kill the bill. The budgetary effects of the pending amendment are merely incidental to the non-budgetary components of the amendment. Therefore, I raise a point of order under Section 313B(1)(d) of the Congressional Budget Act of 1974.
All right. So, very impressive. Proud of you, President DJT. Yeah, I don't know. This is something that I would expect Rand Paul to do. He's been in favor of funding these agencies, getting it done. He hasn't been standing in the way of it. But maybe he just doesn't want to get primaried like Massey. Who knows? Anyways, although the DHS shutdown is over, FISA still has not passed. Interestingly enough, they were unable to get the votes together to pass FISA for a very good reason, because it didn't contain a warrant protection section for American citizens. It allowed for the same type of spying warrantlessly that was done against President Trump and the people in his inner circle to continue under the version that they were trying to get through. And thank God it didn't pass.
Okay, it's just about 5 a.m.
And also, I can't believe that they stayed up all night and they actually did their job. I mean, I know they've been gone for like 2 weeks, so maybe they felt they needed to come back and they needed to, have a strong showing of it, but they actually did their job.
In Washington, D.C., we've been uploading all night, all day yesterday and all night tonight. Sun's about to come up. And the last vote we cast, after we get this reconciliation bill passed, and we finally got the Department of Homeland Security fully funded with Border Patrol and ICE getting their money after being partially shut down for a long time. The last vote we cast was about FISA 702. Now, the Intel bros, the people who want FISA 702 to continue unabated, they lost. We won because they didn't get their vote. They didn't want a warrant requirement to protect American citizens from U.S. citizen queries. And they lost. So they're going to have to come back to the table, and we're winning. It's a victory for privacy. It's a victory for the spirit, if not also the letter, of the Fourth Amendment. Stay tuned.
All right, so I guess that Getter is not working. The sound is not working on Getter. And I don't know how to make it work. Hang on just a second. Let me camera and okay. So how do I give it access? Allowed to access your camera and microphone. It says it is allowed. Huh. Okay. Well, I guess I'm going to go ahead and end the live stream on Getter. Come to Rumble or Pilled or YouTube. Let me share this with the folks over there on Getter real quick. And why does my camera keep locking up? What the heck, man? Something weird is going on, as it always seems to be. Okay, let me share this. Share, copy. There's the links, you guys. Okay, and I'll let that go for, maybe I can, no. I don't know. I don't know why nothing is working over on Getter. Very strange. Very, very strange. Okay, well, whatever. We'll deal with it later. And I'm going to end the stream right now. There we go. Okay. Dismiss. How strange. Why is everything wrong? Okay. All right. So I don't want FISA to pass if people are still allowed to spy on American citizens. That's obviously not what we want to happen. Studio light system is no, I don't want that. Okay, let me change that. Mic. How do I? OBS? No. Opera. All right. Well, I'm not going to be able to. Yeah, I'm just going to have to. No. Turn off the light. Turn off center stage. Turn off the light. Maybe that'll work. Okay. Well, we'll see if that fixes anything. Okay, so yeah, we got to get rid of FISA 702. I think that what Bill Pulte is coming in to do is part of this. As I said yesterday, Bill Pulte's presence has triggered both Democrats and Republicans in both the House and the Senate. And the reason they're not willing to pass it, besides the fact that there is the warrantless spying still, is the fact that Bill Pulte is going to be there. Sherry K says, hey, Zach, happy Friday. My brother-in-law was stationed in Italy for 3 years. While there, his wife was not allowed to get a job of any kind because they see it as taking a job from an Italian citizen, as they should. I mean, it's exactly what it is. Principled Enigma says, I wonder how much of the Save America Act has been passed in other bills. None of it has actually been passed in other bills, as far as I know. We do have some news on the Save America Act. Now, unfortunately, an Obama judge has just struck down President Trump's asylum policies. Now, this is something that was a major win, and we just spoke about it very recently. But now U.S. District Judge John McConnell, who is unsurprisingly an Obama appointee, is accusing President Trump of leaving millions of illegal aliens in the U.S. in limbo. Well, I don't care. That means absolutely nothing to me.
I'm here to tell you right now, we don't care.
Let me tell you
We don't care. Jerry.
So the Trump administration in November suspended asylum cases because we had 2 National Guard members get shot by an Afghan who entered the U.S. under the Biden regime. At that time, he said, I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries to allow the U.S. system to recover. That's exactly what we want. Only reverse migration can cure the situation, he said at the time. But Judge McConnell, blasting President Trump's anti-immigrant animus in a 135-page rebuke, said the government effectively invites the court to shut its eyes and ignore the strong evidence of anti-immigrant animus before it. Well, so what? This is what we elected. This is the actual policy we wanted. There are too many immigrants here, illegal or otherwise. We don't want the doors of the United States to be open indefinitely forever. Okay. Bubba Bird, I think you're sitting on your keyboard. You're sitting on your keyboard. Bubba is like a normal viewer of the show. So, Bubba, hopefully you can hear me. What are you doing? Why are you continuously... You got to be sitting on your keyboard or something, dude. Check that out, because I don't want to ban you, because I know who you are. But just check your keyboard, bro. Oh, my God. Okay. I'm going to give you just another minute, Bubba, because at some point you got to hear me. Yeah, maybe it's the cat. Oh my God. All right. I think everybody can deal with it for a few minutes. Hopefully he hears me eventually. All right. So continuing, the judge said doing so would require profound naivete on the court's part. Unfortunately for the government, that is an invitation for that this court will have to decline. So this judge struck down a number of President Trump's administration policies which target asylum seekers and immigrants who seek benefits in this rebuke. During the suspension of that asylum, we froze immigration applications for people who fell under the specific definition of this travel ban. And, of course, that is going to leave people in the United States in some sort of legal limbo. But it also invites them to go back to their country of origin. The challenged policies place the lives of countless individuals on hold solely by virtue of their countries of birth. No one is guaranteed entry into the United States of America, Judge McConnell. Over 6 months later, he said, many of those individuals remain without work, go home, without legal status, go home, and without any meaningful ability to plan their futures, go home. He then went on to lambaste what he described as strong evidence of anti-immigrant animus. You know, this is about more than just anti-immigrant animus. This is about the people of the United States taking their power and sovereignty back. In Idaho, they are doing work to address the H-1B system as well. The Attorney General of Idaho, Raul Labrador, writes that when Congress created the H-1B visa program, the purpose was to allow American employers to hire skilled foreign workers when they genuinely couldn't find qualified Americans to fill specialized jobs. A software engineer with a rare skill set, a researcher with expertise unavailable in the domestic labor market. That was the deal. Major corporations have turned it into a cost-cutting mechanism. Amazon, Apple, Google, Disney, and Meta have all conducted mass layoffs in recent years while simultaneously filling thousands of H-1B petitions for new hires. The most documented example involved Southern California Edison, which replaced hundreds of American IT workers with H-1B hires at 40% lower cost, and then required the fired employees to train their own replacements before they left. It's unconscionable. If you guys have ever had to train your replacement, it is a demoralizing thing. So Idaho workers are not insulated from this. When corporations nationwide systematically replace American workers with cheap foreign labor, it drives down wages across entire industries and career tracks, including the technical and professional fields where Idaho workers compete for jobs. My office joined a 13-state coalition submitting formal comments to the U.S. Department of Labor in support of a proposed rule that would raise the minimum wage employers are required to pay foreign workers under the H-1B program. I signed on because protecting American workers is not a regional issue, and the Idaho families who depend on fair wages in competitive fields deserve an immigration system that puts their interests first. The mechanics of the problem are worth understanding because right now H-1B employers are required to pay foreign workers the, quote, prevailing wage for the occupation. But the methodology used to calculate that wage was set through informal agency guidance in 1998 and in 2005 without any public comment process and without any reasoned explanation for why the figures produced actually reflect what the statute requires. The Department of Labor has acknowledged this itself, noting in the proposed rule that the current wage levels were based on the assumption that the mean wage of the lowest paid one-third of the workers surveyed in each occupation could provide a surrogate for the entry-level wage, but the department did not previously conduct any meaningful economic analysis to test that validity. When the wage floor is set artificially low, the entire incentive structure of the program tilts towards replacing American workers rather than supplementing them. There's also a national security dimension that deserves attention because roughly 1 in 8 H-1B workers granted a visa in recent years was a Chinese national. The federal government designates China as a foreign adversary. And when the 5 largest recipients of approved H-1B petitions are companies developing some of America's most sensitive technology, the volume of foreign national access to those industries is not an abstract concern. The Department of Labor's proposed rule would raise the wage floors that H-1B employers must meet. Higher wages means the program returns to its stated purpose, bringing in workers with genuinely rare and advanced skills whose compensation reflects that. The coalition comments also make the legal case that the current wage methodology is likely unlawfully under the American Administrative Procedure Act, having been established outside the required notice and comment process and without the reasoned analysis federal agencies are obliged to provide when setting up binding requirements. Congress ultimately is going to need to act to make more fundamental reforms, including requiring employers to demonstrate that they tried to hire American workers before turning to the H-1B program. We all know that's not happening right now. But raising the wage floor is the most consequential administrative fix available right now, and the department is right to pursue it. Immigration policy that serves American workers is not a hostile position. It is the baseline the law was supposed to guarantee all along. This is clearly something that needs to be addressed, but getting Congress to address anything of substance is, as I've said before, like herding cats in the desert. Unfortunately, they oftentimes are benefiting from programs that hurt American citizens. And it leads to situations like what we see in New Jersey, where you have people from all around the world flooding into the United States, legally or otherwise, attempting to supplant and replace American citizens. And then you have the people who support them supplanting and replacing American citizens, watering down the fabric of American society, creating a hodgepodge society, which means nothing. When you have a nation of borderless and disconnected individuals, there is nothing to hold our country together except for situations like this. Thank you to Patel Patriot John for rating the stream. I appreciate it. Also, thank you very much to Ginger45 for the 2 cookies. Thank you to Filter Dog, who says Senator Tillis is a loser. We're going to be listening to that here in just a few minutes. Thank you for that. Sean Joe, thank you for 2 cookies, who says your volume is extra low today. Really? My volume is extra low today. Huh. Is that any better? Is my volume any better right now? Because it's the same volume that it was for the last couple of days. Testing, 1, 2, 3. Let me know if you have any difference in the way my volume sounds, because it should be just fine. Okay. Moon Baby, also, thank you very much for the cookie. Hey there, Family. Thank you for the news, Zach. I appreciate that. Space Coast Patriot said, I was trying to watch the 5 for a few minutes, and I couldn't do it without that. I couldn't do it with that bitch on there. Okay, people are saying that I'm good over on Rumble. It should be the same volume over on Pilled. That's very strange. Okay. Thank you also to Filter Dog, who says 7 years for fixing a tractor. So, okay, we'll pull that up in just a minute. Everybody else says my volume is fine. Okay. All right. Okay, so things are getting really dicey at Newark, at Delaney in Newark. And now it's even worse because local police have just announced that they're going to be pulling out of the facility. They are no longer going to be protecting the streets. They are essentially abdicating the streets to the Antifa rioters. This is a Friday night. People have got precious little to do except show up at this facility and cause a lot of trouble. This has been going on for weeks now, and New Jersey has essentially chosen to do nothing about it. I got to turn this down, but you can see here in this clip, it is getting heated. This was from last night. These people don't care about law and order. They don't care about any sense of decorum. They are quite literally fighting with the police, and the police have now just told them that they've won. Now, ICE and Customs and Border Protection, they're supposed to protect the facility, but the streets are the domain. No video. Good God. Okay. I don't know what's going on with okay. Let me go back here. I don't know what the hell is going on with OBS today, guys. Okay. Nothing is supposed to get stuck in the way that it has today. I mean, these people are actively fighting with ICE. Excuse me, they're actively fighting with the local police. They have no respect for the police. ICE and CBP are inside the facility. That's what they're supposed to be protecting. The police are supposed to be protecting the streets. And by announcing this pullout, they have essentially announced to Antifa that it's okay to come on in and it's okay to take over. So what you're seeing right now is likely going to be much, much worse tonight. Okay, so moving on to the next clip that we have here. This is Tom Homan. Obviously, what these people want is for Delaney Hall to be shut down. And now the government of New Jersey is actively campaigning for that to happen as well. Given the fact that the New Jersey police have now announced that they're not even going to protect the outside, it is becoming more likely that Delaney Hall might shut down. But Tom Homan wants everybody to know that if they do shut down, it doesn't mean that the leftists have won, because all of the detainees housed inside Delaney Hall are just going to get shipped into states who are taking care of business.
I went to the facility. I stand by the facility. Again, it's not a Hilton. This is not a Grand Hilton. It's a detention center. And I've been in a lot of jails, and I've been in 2 state prisons. I wish they would go to their own state prison, look at that, then come to Delaney Hall, get something to compare it to. Because I think they'll understand that detention is not a luxury. Detention, and they say they want to shut down the facility, they want us to release detainees. You know, when I looked at the files, you know, a lot of people in that facility are mandatory detention by federal statute. We couldn't release them if we wanted to, because there's certain people, whether they're expedited removals, whether it's certain criminal, whether they're final order cases, by law, we have to detain them. And here's what they're not talking about. You want to shut down the facility? Then every illegal alien we arrest in that state will fly to Texas, we'll fly to Arizona, detain them there, because we're going to keep arresting people. We're going to keep detaining people. We're going to keep removing people. If I can't detain them in that city where they're close to their families, then we'll have to move them someplace else. How does that benefit the migrant community? I mean, you're not going to shut down ICE enforcement. You're certainly not going to abolish ICE, and you're not going to stop us from doing our job. President Trump's in the Oval Office. He's there mainly because of what the Biden administration did to the border. Where were all these congressional representatives and politicians in 4 years open border? How come they didn't take Secretary Mayorkas on? How come they didn't take the Biden administration on for opening border? Over 10 million people flow to our border, many criminals, many sex offenders, 2.1 million gotaways. Where do they come from? Who are they? How many of them are terrorists? How many of them are criminals? They didn't say a word about what happened in the last 4 years. And the reason ICE is out there arresting people right now, because we're responding to historic illegal immigration crisis that they made, that they created on purpose. So a massive historic illegal alien crisis, how to respond to that? To massive deportation, because most of these people should never have been released in the country.
And Mr. Homan.
Now, I see it in the chat. Why are they allowing this to happen? What can they do about it? Can they bring in the National Guard? The answer is yes. They absolutely can bring in the National Guard. And given the fact that the New Jersey State Police are going to be leaving this area, it's becoming more likely that the National Guard will come in. Now, if you've been watching over the course of the last 2 weeks as we've been talking about this, then you've probably heard me say why I think this is happening. Every single one of these Antifa rioters that are showing up and engaging in this behavior are making themselves known to the federal government. Every single nonprofit organization that is donating money, that is donating supplies, are putting themselves on the radar of the federal government. This, over the course of the last several weeks, has been, in my opinion, an operation designed to capture the network and expose it so that these people can be prosecuted. Now, earlier today, Todd Blanche and FBI Director Patel did an interview with News Nation, and they actually confirmed exactly that.
Time we've seen these kinds of riots outside of these facilities, it's very clear that there are organized groups behind these kinds of riots. There are signal chat groups. There's money being funneled through these NGOs. These groups are violent. They're organizing violence. You can see what they're doing. You guys have just indicted someone for wanting to murder ICE agents and their families. But should more be done against these groups, Mr. Director, to investigate them?
Well, I think for the American public, we are doing more. We just can't speak about it until we speak through an indictment. And as you've seen here today, these fraud cases take sometimes years and months to put together. And same thing with the SPLC. It takes a long time to put a case like that together. We have to follow the money. We have to issue subpoenas. We have to go to judges and get search warrants. We have to produce the evidence in a fashion that's usable in court. And so what we've been doing since day one at the FBI is tracing the money and finding the commonalities in these individuals, just like we would with any other corrupt criminal organization that is allegedly going out there and conducting nefarious activity. And so that work has been ongoing since I took office as a director of the FBI, and thanks to our courageous prosecutors under AG Blanche, they are issuing the necessary legal process. But when you get bank returns back, when you get location data back, you have to put that in a usable format, make presentations to judges and grand juries, and that just takes a little bit of time.
Since the moment that President Trump came back into office, the plan was implemented to map Antifa network, these radical left-wing networks, the 501c3 networks, to scoop up as many people as they could, and there have been quite a few. The very first time, we've had dozens of arrests, indictments, and prosecutions of Antifa. Every single one of those people, their communications, their bank accounts, their networks have been mapped. And every single time you have an event like what we see at Delaney Hall take place, the network expands. The money trail expands. And the DOJ and the FBI has been monitoring, taking note, and issuing subpoenas to track, listen to, and follow these people. So why is it happening? Because when these people commit crimes, they make themselves known. And what do we ultimately want? We want to see them prosecuted. We want to take down their networks. And these people are too stupid to do anything other than what they've been programmed to do. And by doing that, they will put themselves in legal jeopardy. In fact, they've already put themselves in legal jeopardy. So I would say keep your eyes open for the National Guard to be called in, because things are about to get hairy tonight. Let me say thank you very much to Principled Enigma, who says, your volume on Rumble is fine, but every now and then you go completely out of focus, and it's just your webpage that does that. So, yeah, that's a Rumble thing. Kitsko says, guess what protesting asshats? Congress is funding DHS and ICE. If they were smart, they would partner with Tina Peters on prison reform. They could have a purpose. Well, prison reform is one thing, but detention of illegal aliens is another. Two totally different systems. Lee Walden says, ahoy, Zach and Miss Lisa and crew. I, for one, will never give up the promise of America, worth the fight and the determination that we share, lest we forget the sacrifice and all it took. We will prevail. Yes, sir, we are on our way. Principled Enigma, any bets as to whether or not at least one governor ends up getting arrested prior to the midterms? If I had to put my money on anybody, it would be Tim Walz. Absolutely, it would be on Tim Walz. All right. Now, you know what? Arizona might not be far behind because Arizona is corrupt as hell. And Katie Hobbs, she's currently under criminal investigation. But the Arizona Attorney General has, of course, not given up on the possibility of indicting those 20. The lawfare case continues on under Attorney General Chris Mays and her bid to once again revive the case against the 2020 electors. In April, those 18 electors, which included Trump White House Chief of Staff Mark Meadows, former New York Mayor Rudy Giuliani, RNC attorney Christina Bobb, conservative attorney John Eastman, Trump campaign advisor Boris Epshteyn, all of them were indicted by Chris May's grand jury for challenging the stolen 2020 election. And those charges included 9 counts of conspiracy, fraudulent schemes and artifices, fraudulent schemes and practices, forgery, and, of course, that case fell apart. A far-left judge actually allowed the defendants to argue that the charges were politically motivated, which they were. And the same judge later recused himself after he was busted bashing white men and making demands that other judges in Arizona support Kamala Harris against her conservative critics. Now, finally, a judge later ruled that state prosecutors improperly presented the case to a grand jury and failed to inform jurors of the Electoral Count Act, which dictates the rules of electoral vote counting, and exonerated the defendants. There was an appeals court that sided with the lower court judge, refusing to even consider the charges again in September. Now, the current Attorney General, Chris Mays, is so upset about the fact that this case has essentially been called dead in the water. She is attempting to try to bring it back. So she has appealed this case, seeking to revive the charges against these defendants. And the spokesperson for Chris Mays, Richie Taylor, said the Arizona Attorney General's office will return this case to the grand jury, and we decline to comment any further. Now, she also may face legal jeopardy. There is a alleged bribery scandal involving her and a number of other left-wing groups that paid her to prosecute those Trump electors. Chris Mays handed a series of unprecedented prosecutorial authority to the United States Democracy Center. That's a far-left nonprofit that was funded and founded by Norm Eisen, the architect of the color revolution. They sent a memo to Chris Mays in July of 2023 laying out the entire case. They even outlined potential criminal charges and potential defenses, as well as a deadline for Mays to arrange these indictments under the statute of limitations. In exchange for following their orders, the Democratic Attorneys General Association gave Chris Mays $200,000. We learned this from a whistleblower memorandum that was filed with the Department of Justice by Christina Bobb in June of last year. And Abe Hamada, representative from Arizona, has demanded a federal investigation into Mays over this illegal scheme and the weaponization of her office, but we still have no investigation into her. All we know is that Chris Mays will not rest until these people are under indictment once again. Ma'am FC, or Ma'am, is that Ma'am FC? Or yeah, Ma'am FC says, great news from a great guy. Thank you so much for that $100 rant. I really do appreciate it. That means a lot. Very generous. Thank you so much. All right. Now, in a vote yesterday in the Senate, 6 Republican senators voted along with Democrats to once again try to block construction of President Trump's ballroom. Now, the proposal needed 60 votes, but it failed because it was only 52 to 47. But, of course, the 6 Republican senators, Jeff Merkley from Oregon, he's the sponsor of this bill. He was trying to block the construction of President Trump's 90,000 square foot ballroom, which is really a base, basically, the White House base. And it was an amendment that would have given Congress the sole authority to construct a new ballroom, and it would have barred any federal funds or even private donations from being used to build the ballroom that President Trump is building right now. So the 6 Republicans that joined up with Merkley and the other Democrats are Susan Collins, as you might expect, John Husted of Ohio, Jerry Moran of Kansas, Lisa Murkowski of Alaska, and Dan Sullivan of Alaska, and Tom Tillis of North Carolina. Now, where is the Tom Tillis clip I wanted to play? Hold on. Shucks. I don't know where it is. I'll get to it in a minute. Oh, actually, I can pull it up in my bookmarks right here. Tom Tillis, not surprised that he is trying to block construction of this. He's basically doing anything he can to just piss President Trump off in his final days. But this is going nowhere. All it says is that these people, once again, are standing in Trump's way and trying to stop him. But that doesn't matter, because this is an administration that has a lot of different moves that we can play. And right now, election fraud is paramount among all of them. Of all things that we need to address, besides immigration, election fraud is number one. Now, President Trump spoke in the Oval Office yesterday about the likelihood of fraud taking place in California, because, as we've talked about on so many occasions, California has a fraudulent system due to their universal mail-in ballot strategy. And the longer they count ballots, the more they erode the margin that Spencer Pratt has. And, of course, the more votes they are giving to Nithya Raman. The more votes they're giving to Karen Bass as well. Now, if she gets to 50% after this exercise is complete, then she will be the candidate, and she's going to end up being the governor, or excuse me, the mayor. Now, as of 2:47 p.m. yesterday, 62% of the ballots in Los Angeles' mayor race had been counted, and they've only projected that Karen Bass would be in the runoff in November. So she is currently sitting at 35%. Spencer is at 29.9%, and Nithya Raman is at 22.8%. But with nearly 40% more votes They estimate 322,000 at that time. Of course, anything can happen. And in the case of Steve Hilton, he was still yesterday at 27.5%, which would be the first place, but they are estimating over 4 million ballots all across the state of California remain to be counted. So let's listen to President Trump speaking about this yesterday in the White House.
Utility companies are trying to hide this from you. If you fix this one mistake happening in your home.
So that's
all right. So we know that there is fraud taking place. And President Trump asking for an investigation is highly consequential.
That's great. We put in today, as you know, about Save America, the Save America Act. I don't know, someday the Senate and the House will get it done, although I must tell you the House has approved it about 3 times already. Save America Act right here. We have, everybody can see that. And then we'll talk about clean, beautiful coal. You're not allowed to say coal within the Trump administration unless it's preceded by the words clean, beautiful. Complicates our life, but it's good, right, Chris, wherever you may be? It is clean and beautiful. I'll tell you, it's effective. So the Save America Act is all voters must show photo ID. So you go to vote and you show photo ID. Not complicated, right? You know, who could oppose it? They say it's an 80-20. It's not. It's about 99-1, and we'll never find the one person. Andy, congratulations, Andy, on a big victory.
Thank you for your help.
That's great. I appreciate it, but you're very good at what you do, and I've been backing you right from the beginning for a long time, right?
Backing you too, sir.
For years, that's right, you have. Thank you. Congratulations. You won a big election. So you have all voters must show photo ID, identification. All voters must show a little thing called proof of citizenship. Would you say that's 99-1, Mr. Pennsylvania?
I would say that's maybe 100 to 0.
I would think so.
In order to make sure that people are legally eligible to vote, this is the only thing that makes sense. President Trump wrote on Truth Social, look what's happening in California. The Democrats, right before our eyes, are stealing the vote. I hope the Republicans are watching so they can finally pass the Save America Act. Now, the Save America Act was voted on yesterday, but it was only 50 to 49. And obviously, unless they kill the filibuster, it needs 60 to pass. They simply just can't get it to 60. Now, it may be a moot point when it comes to mail-in voting because the U.S. Supreme Court currently has a case before it which may likely strike down California's use of these late mail-in ballots. Now, there is a Supreme Court case pending. Right now, the court's already heard it. We're basically waiting for the end of the term in June. That's when we would get all of these late last-minute decisions. And this is a case that came out of Mississippi, and it deals with a state law that says how long you can count ballots after Election Day. So if they're postmarked and there's a certain grace period, then they can go ahead and do that. But if they were to really think about this in the proper way, any ballots that were not in the hands of election officials on Election Day should not be counted. And, of course, that would do away with one aspect of the problem when it comes to fraud. Now, take a look at this. On June 3rd at 10 a.m., they estimated across California there was 3.6 million ballots left to count. As of this morning at 10 a.m., they estimated there was 3.8 million ballots left to count. How does that happen? How do they go up 200,000 ballots in a 2-day period? That looks to me like 200,000 ballots they're getting ready to inject into the system. And again, it just shows you how this system is set up to cheat and steal the election from people that the citizens are actually voting for. Now, again, as of this morning, Steve Hilton is still the number one vote getter with 1.5 million votes at 27.2%, but Xavier Becerra is close behind. So it is only natural that the investigation into California's election system should begin immediately. And that is exactly what is happening. Now, after President Trump's request yesterday, earlier this morning, U.S. Attorney Bill Asaley posted on Twitter, protecting the integrity of California's elections is a top priority for my office. California's election system has serious structural vulnerabilities, and he knows because he was part of the California Assembly. Universal vote by mail with no voter ID requirements creates conditions where fraud can go undetected and unpunished, eroding public confidence. Without commenting on any specific investigation, my office has multiple election fraud investigations underway in coordination with the FBI Los Angeles. We will follow the evidence wherever it leads and prosecute any violations of federal election law to the fullest extent. My office is also working closely with Harmeet Dillon to conduct a comprehensive audit of California's voter rolls. The state has stonewalled every effort to verify that only eligible U.S. citizens are registered to vote. This case is now before the Ninth Circuit Court of Appeals, and my office will not look the other way. We will investigate and prosecute. Every legal vote deserves to be counted. Every illegal vote cancels one out. So, also earlier today, Bill Asaley sent a federal prosecutor to investigate the scene at the Los Angeles County ballot processing facility that we looked at yesterday, which appears to be very, very big and have all kinds of opportunities for the ballots to be counted, but seemingly not that many people actually doing the counting. Now, President Trump, again, has also asserted that currently the investigation is underway in California. Bill Asaley has confirmed, without confirming anything specific, that an investigation is underway in California, multiple investigations. And U.S. Attorney Robert Renner came to tour the county's ballot processing facility as the questions begin to mount about the speed of ballot processing. Again, a third world nation like India can count hundreds of millions of ballots in a single day. California's one state, and they can't get it done in under 6 weeks, apparently. So Bill Asaley, again, sent this California prosecutor, Robert Renner, in to review what was going on. He visited the 144,000 square foot ballot processing facility actually yesterday, and he found large sections of the operation were just sitting unused, despite the fact that they have a massive backlog of ballots to be counted. Now, there were rows of empty chairs, vacant ballot processing stations, and expansive areas of the facility with little visible activity going on while hundreds of thousands of ballots are uncounted. The New York Post spoke to an election center staff member about the rows of unused workstations, despite the backlog, and the employee insisted reporters should not be fooled by what you see. You can see here Renner speaking with ballot processing facility employees, taking notes. Here we have what appears to be a live webcam, which shows people unpacking ballots and processing them in some segment. When pressed to elaborate, the staff member offered no further explanation of what they actually meant. Now, the county announced last night they had processed an additional 74,486 ballots since the previous update, bringing the total number counted to 1.4 million ballots. And despite the progress, officials estimate still an additional 638,000 ballots remain outstanding, including approximately 627,000 vote-by-mail ballots, 9,888 conditional voter registration ballots, and 1,806 provisional ballots. Here, from another angle, you can see many different workstations completely empty. Nobody's counting, nobody's working. Dozens of ballot counting stations are empty. Here, again, dozens of ballot counting stations appear to be empty, thousands of ballots uncounted. The federal visit also comes on the heels of President Trump asserting that California is trying to steal the election. President Trump posted multiple times on Wednesday night that this is likely taking place. Here is some video of U.S. Attorney Renner touring the facility, and we can see for ourselves exactly what is or is not going on.
Oh, that would be, I mean, we can't enter the room, but the closest we can be is point me in the direction where that is. Yeah, so this is our bullpen area, and this is the closest we can be. Yeah, come on in. Oh, that would be, I mean.
Now, somebody, farmer says, seems kind of clear California is flucked. They're only flucked if there is an administration in place with no will to do something about it. Now, again, much like I think New Jersey's Delaney facility was set up as a honeypot operation to ensnare all of these people, I believe the exact same thing is happening in California right now. I think the administration was fully aware that this was going to take place, and they set up from the very beginning anticipating this was going to happen, which is, you know, what we can point to with Bill Asaley mentioning that there are multiple investigations currently taking place. Now, Harmeet Dillon responded to Bill Asaley and said, teamwork, dreamwork. Ask yourself, why does California and many other states hide their voter rolls from the federal government at the same time they gladly hand them over to liberal activist groups? So they know where to look. They know exactly what they're looking for. Now, Bill Asaley also retweeted a post from Harmeet Dillon on the 18th where she had posted about Brenda Lee Brown Armstrong's plea deal. And Bill Asaley says, once again, there is clear evidence of election fraud in California. Here's a case we charged last month. More investigations are underway, again, without pointing to any investigation specifically. Now, Steve Hilton has come forward, and he says there is actually a whistleblower who has come forward as well, making claims of separate post office buckets for ballots arriving after Election Day. The California gubernatorial candidate Steve Hilton has made his displeasure known about California's election system. Joining Laura Ingram, let's go ahead and take a listen.
Yes, Steve, congratulations for that showing last night. What do you think about my proposal?
Well, you're completely right. And first of all, Laura, thank you for your engagement in this fight to save California. Really, really appreciate that. It's insane. This election system that they've created here is just another monument to their uselessness, another version of high-speed rail. And just to really underline the point that you made about the corruption, I remember last elections we had here, I had a whistleblower that contacted me from a post office describing that they had different buckets they were supposed to put the ballots in after they come in after Election Day, and they were explicit.
Because the whistleblower information has already been given to the DOJ and the FBI.
Explicitly told that it didn't just have to be a postmark that was on or before Election Day that qualified. If the date was handwritten, that would be okay as well. And you just think, what? It's just unbelievable. And of course, that's why so many people don't believe the results. But it just undermines confidence. So I completely agree with you. There is a case out of Mississippi that I think might help with this, that before the Supreme Court. But the whole thing is insane. I mean, the fact that you're sending out mail ballots to every single person on a voting roll that is wildly inaccurate, even though it's being cleaned up because the Trump Justice Department, thankfully, is bringing lawsuits against California to clean up the voter rolls. There's still a long way to go there. The whole thing is a joke, just like pretty much everything else they try and do here.
So, yes, the only reason you would announce that somebody has come forward with this information if it's already been handed over to the proper authorities. And I believe that President Trump calling this out while at the same time having people in the building investigating it is because the investigation is already underway. It's not something that they're going to be able to cover up. It's too late for them.
Martha, this is L.A. County's massive ballot processing center. Some of the workers on break right now behind me. We're told about 680,000 ballots remain. Any ballot that was postmarked by Election Day must be counted. The process takes so long in part because each envelope must be signature verified. Also, a short while ago, an assistant United States attorney arrived to observe and ask questions here. The California Secretary of State is standing by this all, writing, accuracy comes before speed. California is the nation's largest voting state with millions of ballots to process and count. Now, here in L.A., homelessness and open-air drug use, a key issue. Yesterday, there was a massive federal and local law enforcement sweep at L.A.'s MacArthur Park, known for brazen fentanyl and meth use. In this latest sting, 6 people were cited, 13 people arrested.
So they are paying attention to California in a way that has never happened before.
The park has devolved into an open-air drug market. And
Martha, this is L.A.
Bill Asaley is the man for the job. Now, they have announced that Xavier Becerra will be advancing in the governor's primary race. because 57% of the ballots have been counted now. And Xavier Becerra currently has 1,468,875 votes at 26%. However, Steve Hilton has 1.5 million votes, we'll just say, at 27.17%. So why are they not saying that Steve Hilton is going to be advancing? Why are they calling it for Xavier Becerra already? Because they believe that they have the ability to cheat and to get away with it.
Election. Steve Hilton has a comfortable lead over Xavier Becerra. What will Tom Steyer be able to do to get there? Will he be able to somehow find 5% of the vote there? ABC 10 State Matters political reporter Jenny Ha spoke with an election data expert.
I know that we can do it.
The underdog stayed in the fight.
And we know we finished really strong.
It remains to be seen which two candidates will battle it out in November to be the next governor of California. As early results stand Thursday, Trump-endorsed Republican Steve Hilton remains in the lead, followed by Democrats Xavier Becerra and Tom Steyer.
I don't think that it has any meaning whether one finishes above the other in a primary like this. This is a race where Steve Hilton really had one opponent, and that was Chad Bianco, whereas Xavier Becerra had 5 opponents, the major Democratic candidates in the race with him.
The million-dollar question, will it be Hilton and Becerra or Becerra and Steyer? Election data expert Paul Mitchell says for Steyer to move up from third place, a lot needs to happen. There's a 6-point gap between Steyer and second place Becerra.
He not only needs to make up that 6-point gap.
He's not going to be able to make up that 6-point gap. But the fact of the matter is, in California, they are so brazen with the level of cheating. The way they've been doing it all these years is a way that's always worked. They have no reason to believe that anything is going to stop them this time, which is, again, why I believe this administration is going to do just that. We have to prove the fraud, and the only way to prove the fraud is to show people while it's actually happening. And now we have an administration and a Department of Justice that is keenly observing exactly what's happening. Now, let's jump in to Bill Pulte. When I said that Bill Pulte was a interesting pick for the acting DNI, I also said that I think that Bill Pulte's presence as DNI could bring about significant change in the intelligence community. The Office of the Director of National Intelligence was not created until after 9/11. It was supposed to be a clearinghouse to oversee all of the intelligence agencies. However, it has not always been that way. And in many instances, especially under Tulsi Gabbard, despite the fact that she has put in significant reforms, other intelligence agencies have attempted to usurp the power of the Office of the Director of National Intelligence. Bill Pulte's presence could help do away with a number of things that were put into place as a result of the Patriot Act, both the Director of National Intelligence and the FISA court itself. And President Trump, in an interview, speaking about Bill Pulte's appointment, has said that he wants Bill Pulte to wholesale clean up the intelligence agency, to fire intelligence community employees. And because Pulte is operating under the Scaramucci model, he doesn't have to worry about being a part of the intelligence community. He doesn't have to worry about Senate confirmation. He can come in and he can do all of this without fear. Now, the Wall Street Journal is a little nervous about this, but President Trump said he wants Pulte, the incoming Director of National Intelligence, to begin the process of firing a large number of employees to shake up the intel community. This interview was held earlier this morning, and President Trump said he has privately told Pulte he believes the Office of the Director of National Intelligence, which oversees 18 federal intelligence agencies and units, is unnecessary and or too big. Tulsi Gabbard already fired quite a few people when she came in. He said, "I'd like to see it smaller. I think there are a lot of people in there that shouldn't be there, people who are holdovers from the Obama administration or from the Biden administration." President Trump said these holdovers from those administrations should be fired. Whether he's calling on Pulte to fire people and Trump wants him to start the process, adding that his eventual nominee to serve in the role permanently should continue that work. President Trump stunned a lot of people when he chose Pulte. The move was met with skepticism from both Democrats and Republicans on Capitol Hill, which is exactly why I think Pulte needs to be in that position. He may not have the national security experience, but I like that. I like somebody coming in who is not already co-opted by the intelligence community. This is a temporary role which will allow him to serve for 210 days. And President Trump said, as a result of Pulte's temporary status, you're less shackled. It sort of gives you more power. You have a somewhat limited period of time. You can get the job done. He said he hopes Pulte can begin making the changes across the intelligence community before a permanent intelligence director is confirmed. Frankly, it might be good for him to shake it up before other people come in, because if he can reduce the size in conjunction with me and in conjunction with possibly the person coming in, he can do a lot of the hard work and we wouldn't have to saddle somebody that goes in. Pulte and representatives for the Office of the Director of National Intelligence did not respond to a request for comment. Democrats and Republicans have sounded the alarm because Pulte is an ally of Trump. They say he'll use his perch to target the president's perceived enemies and politicize the agency. We don't need a weaponized DNI, said Senate Majority Leader John Thune. Well, in fact, I think that's exactly what we need, because only if somebody comes in with the idea of weaponizing that power to clear out those who would otherwise stand in the way of the president implementing his agenda, otherwise it's not going to happen. The president also said that he's in the process of interviewing people for the actual position. Again, I think that Devin Nunes would be the perfect person for that. But he said he wants Pulte to approach the job similarly to the way that Education Secretary Linda McMahon has managed her agency. McMahon has reduced the size of the department, and President Trump previously said he just wants to eliminate it and then shift their duties to other agencies. We've made the education department much smaller, and likewise, this should be much smaller, and maybe it should even be terminated. We'll make that decision. Pulte said last year that Fannie Mae was firing more than 100 employees, and the administration later fired about a dozen officials in Fannie Mae's Ethics and Internal Investigations Unit. Pulte is the chairman of the board for Fannie Mae and Freddie Mac, and he oversees the Federal Housing Agency. The Director of National Intelligence is the president's top intelligence advisor, and the DNA's powers include briefing the president on the most sensitive U.S. secrets, exercising authority over the $100 billion annual U.S. spy budget, and holding sway over which secrets to declassify. The president said he wants Pulte to release more classified documents related to issues such as the 2020 election. Asked what kind of documents Pulte should consider releasing, President Trump said, I would say everything. He should look at everything and make a determination. President Trump has also privately, allegedly argued to Pulte has argued to Trump that he would make a good candidate to succeed Tulsi Gabbard as the DNI, underscoring his loyalty. And, of course, Gabbard stepping down gives an opportunity for President Trump to put somebody in there who is going to toe the line. The ODNI is already making cuts. Gabbard has slashed spending by the agency by more than 40%. And President Trump has a lot more work to do if we're going to clear out the deep state. Some people in the administration referred to Pulte as Little Trump, saying that his aggressive approach as housing chief is similar to the president's. And he's alleged that several of Trump's perceived foes have committed mortgage fraud, people like Adam Schiff, Letitia James, and Lisa Cook on the Board of Governors at the Federal Reserve. The allegations against Cook, of course, were put forth when President Trump was attempting to fire her. Cook's legal challenge is currently pending in the Supreme Court. We should know the answer to that by June, when the current session of the Supreme Court concludes. The criminal referrals against Adam Schiff and Letitia James appear to be sitting in limbo. So hopefully the DOJ moves on that. Let's see. Thank you to Principled Enigma, who says, you probably remember I live in Arizona. Yes, and a lot of good people here, except for the piece of shit that governs the state. Can't wait until justice is served to her over a cheap paper plate. Voting for Gosar. Yeah, Gosar's good. Also, over on Pilled, Space Coast Patriot says that 23 years ago today, we got married with no money, no credit, and today we own a home on the water worth double what we paid for it. Keep fighting and you'll get there. Helps to have a little financial knowledge too. My husband builds rockets, I do hair, and here we are. Sean Joe, thank you for that. Sean Joe, thank you for 2 cookies. Space Coast Patriot says, wasn't Schmidt the AG of Alabama or Missouri? I believe it was Missouri. Also, is this going to be Elon's tunnel company? Well, you know what? The Boring Company would be an excellent candidate for that. I don't know what the process of building a tunnel underwater is, though. That's the thing. And then Filter Dog says, the water is how you know it's in full control now. If they still had control, the water would not be turned on, the repairs would not have been made, and the water would not be flowing. Brian Cates, which one are you talking about? What circumstance are you referring to? Okay, and let's see. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie as well. Appreciate that. All right, now, moving on from Bill Pulte. Oh, here is the clip that I had about Tom Tillis, but I actually have a video of it now. Let me go ahead and swap that out, and let's watch President Trump take Tom Tillis to the woodshed.
Senator Tillis is a loser. That's why he didn't run. He didn't run because I wouldn't support him. And he's just an angry man because he's not going to be a senator any longer. He wasn't respected in the Senate. He fought a lot of people. He fought Pete Hegseth. Pete Hegseth turned out to be a gem. No, Senator Tillis is a loser, stone cold, and he's an angry man because I basically, he was forced to leave the Senate because I wouldn't support him, and he quit. So now he's trying to make trouble by, opposing anybody. Todd Blanche is a brilliant guy who everybody likes and everybody respects. And Tillis is always like, I'm going to do this, I'm going to do that. He should have done it before when he was a senator. He would have gotten wiped out in a race. But he needed my support, and I said, I can't give you my support. He's not qualified. He's not good for the position of senator. I didn't hear about what he did with Todd Blanche. Todd Blanche is fantastic.
Yeah. Tom Tillis has essentially said that he will not support Todd Blanche unless he specifically disavows every single person from January 6th. I don't believe that's going to happen. And here actually is Todd Blanche and Kash Patel once again. A lot of what we have been talking about over the last couple of years has hinged on the idea of success for this administration because of the dangers of what might come afterwards if we're unsuccessful. However, it would appear that Todd Blanche and the administration have also foreseen this and have been making moves in the background to ensure that no matter what happens after President Trump leaves office, the other side, the deep state, will be unable to once again weaponize the government against him. And I would expect that that means weaponizing the government against the people as well. Take a listen.
Last question to you about the future. You said this week that you believe President Trump absolutely faced prison if he hadn't won the election in 2024. Democrats have been talking a lot about what they call Project 2029, their plans to prosecute the president, administration officials, ICE agents after the term is up if they regain power either on Capitol Hill or in the White House. Do you believe that's a possibility? And what can be done to prevent this kind of political retribution from Democrats?
Well, do I believe it's a possibility that the Democrats will go after President Trump, his family, anybody that knows him, anybody that worked for him? I think they've proven that to be true. And what can we do about it is we can just keep on exposing. When we learn about the weaponization that happened for many years, we can keep on exposing it and putting roadblocks in place so it never happens again. I don't worry about, for myself, what happens in the future. I worry about this country. I worry about Democrats, some Democrats coming out and actually already forecasting what they're going to try to do if they get leadership again. And that's something the American people see too. The American people saw them do it for 4 years and rejected it wholehandedly. I was in the Oval Office last night with President Trump, okay? So that effort failed. And so I think that I would hope the Democrats would be a little smarter. They have so far proven themselves not to be, but it doesn't affect the work that we do.
All right.
Now, in my opinion, one of the most salient ways they could address this issue is to bring these people to justice, bring them up on charges, and the work to investigate those people still continues to this day. Now, John Solomon has just revealed that some brand new documents from the FBI have been discovered, yet another set of documents found in the coat closet which pertain to Barack Hussein Obama, and they are preparing to reveal it to the American public. Listen to this.
If you saw a grand jury subpoena to former President Barack Obama, I think there will be a need to summon him based on some of the evidence that's now public or about to become public. We've done a lot of talking about him, and he can't be indicted most likely, which also means he can't claim the Fifth Amendment.
Now, let me say this. If it does turn out that they are unable to indict Barack Obama, as John says, he wouldn't be able to claim the Fifth Amendment. He would have to be forthcoming. And if he wasn't, then he could be brought up on perjury charges. However, the Supreme Court determined that presidents are only immune for the official acts they take when they are president of the United States. I think there's a strong argument to be made that the actions of Barack Hussein Obama, which were part of the grand conspiracy to try to bring down President Trump, were anything but official.
And I would keep an eye on that dynamic. I also think that there is big new documents being found in the last few days inside the FBI, the Justice Department, and inside the intelligence communities that go all the way back to the origins of Crossfire Hurricane, all the way up to and including Jack Smith. And I think there's going to be some pretty big...
All the way back and all the way up? That sounds to me like it would certainly be part of the Rico Grande. And that would also include actions taken by Barack Obama, which were certainly not part of his official duties as president. In fact, he wouldn't even have been president during that time.
Revelations with that. And so you'll have information coming out, and that information immediately being digested into a accountability prosecution team down here in Florida. And so the one takeaway I had from just doing a lot of reporting this week is that I think the grand jury is going to need to hear from Barack Obama to understand some of the things that happened on his watch. And
I would love to see Barack Obama being subpoenaed and being questioned over the actions that he took. Can you just imagine everything that would be coming out as a result of that? Jim Kyle says, are they that stupid with all the country watching their every move? I think the short answer is yes. Sean Joe, thank you for the cookie as well. Appreciate that over there. All right, now, House Democrats have once again betrayed President Trump, again passing an aid package for Ukraine, $9 billion. 18 Republicans voted yes. And President Trump, of course, at this time is trying to get Russia and Ukraine to make peace. But that is a difficult prospect when you've got the government of the United States continuing to fund the conflict between Russia and Ukraine. President Trump, of course, is doing everything he can to get Putin and Zelensky in the same room. He wants them to make compromises. He says they're both going to have to make compromises. It's been very strong. I've been very strong on the fact that they've got to get that over with. I want them each to make certain compromises, and I think that they're going to do that. But the House Republicans are doing everything they can to make sure that that doesn't take place. This bill, which passed yesterday, includes sanctions on Russian banks, oil, and mining companies, as well as a ban on Russian oil imports and 500% tariffs on other Russian imports to the U.S. It also authorized the $8 billion extension of Biden's Lend-Lease program for Ukraine to purchase weapons. It also gave them an additional $1 billion in security and reconstruction aid. The vote on this was 226 to 195, which, of course, makes it even more difficult for Russia and puts pressure on the international energy market at the exact same time. Speaker Mike Johnson has urged his members to oppose the measure, arguing in a closed-door meeting Wednesday that they should give President Trump the space he needs to negotiate with Russia. But ultimately, these 18 Republicans and one independent, who does frequently vote with Republicans, passed this bill in what amounts to a rebuke of President Trump's posture towards Russia's war with Ukraine. They want to send a message that they're in charge. They want to stop President Trump from being able to bring peace to Europe. So now we've got a fractured Congress over this issue. And to even bring the bill to the House floor for a vote required a revolt against House leadership. California Representative Kevin Kiley, who's an independent, was the final signature on a discharge position. And this is the procedural tool that's used to circumvent leadership and force votes on the floor. Representative Brian Fitzpatrick, who co-chaired the Congressional Ukraine Caucus, spent months working with Representative Greg Meeks, a Democrat from New York, to land these 218 signatures needed to fast-track the bill to the floor without Johnson's approval. Of course, this would also have to go to the Senate, and it remains to be seen whether or not they'd be able to get that passed. All right, you guys. Let's see. I don't really want to talk about. I want to talk about some fraud before we get out of here. All right. So a defendant from Massachusetts, the chairman of the Needham Parks and Recreation Commission, has just been indicted by a federal grand jury in connection with a scheme to defraud a local Little League out of hundreds of thousands of dollars. You got to be a special kind of piece of shit to steal money from a little kid's Little League organization. Christopher Gerstle, 50, was charged in a 17-count indictment with 12 counts of wire fraud, 2 counts of filing false tax returns, and 3 counts of failure to file tax returns. Gerstle was arrested earlier today, and he is now going to be arraigned in federal court in Boston. Well, he was arraigned in federal court at 1 p.m. Gerstle currently serves as the chairman of the Needham Parks and Recreation Commission. From approximately early 2019 to early 2025, he was also a board member of the directors of Needham Baseball and Softball, which is a Little League organization based in Needham, Mass. In his role as vice president of the baseball operations for NBS, Gerstle was the only NBS board member with access to the payment software system. It's called Arbiter Pay, and that's what they use to pay professional umpires. Beginning in early June 2019, it's alleged he was facing personal financial difficulties, including owing thousands of dollars in outstanding credit card debt. And according to the indictment, from or about June 2019 to October 2024, he stole over $200,000 of NBS funds. Gerstle transferred the funds via wire transfer from the umpire payment system into his personal account. And from June to October of 2024, Gerstle allegedly made over 200 separate wire transfers. $900 here, $1,500 there, $2,500 there, $3,000 there. He used the majority of the stolen funds to pay down thousands of dollars in credit card debt, make car payments, and other personal expenditures, including at country clubs and cash withdrawals at casinos. I was going to say, is gambling going to be a part of this? So the alleged theft was revealed after a new treasurer was appointed by the NBS Board of Directors and discovered these large transfers were made from the NBS bank account into the umpire payment system. Once the treasurer gained access to the payment system, they discovered over $250,000 in transfers had allegedly been made from the system to Gerstle's personal bank account. The indictment also alleges that for the tax years 2019 and 2022, Gerstle failed to report the funds that he stole from NBS on his tax returns. In 2020, 21, and 23, Gerstle failed to file tax returns, and he allegedly lowered his federal income tax liability by lying. The charge of wire fraud carries a maximum sentence of up to 20 years in prison, up to 3 years of supervised release, and a fine of up to $250,000. The charge of falsification of records carries a maximum of 20 years in prison, 3 years of supervised release, and a fine of up to $250,000. The failure to file tax returns carries a maximum sentence of up to 3 years in prison and a fine of $100,000. And the charge of failing to file tax returns again files a maximum of up to 1 year in prison and a fine of $25,000. So the sentences obviously will be handed down by the district judge overseeing the case, but I hope this guy gets a lot of time. Now, fraud czar Colin McDonald is revealing that any whistleblower who was turned away or intimidated by the Tim Walz administration should come forward and speak to the DOJ because they will be protected. This is yet another reason why, if I was going to put money on any governor or attorney general being indicted before the midterms, it would be coming out of Minnesota.
Witness who wants to report fraud. It is shocking, some of the allegations that we're hearing out of Minnesota and other places, that for political correctness reasons or other reasons, whistleblowers were turned away. They were even sent away. They were sent packing. And that is not how we run law enforcement. And that's not how we'll do it in the DOJ and in the fraud division. Whistleblowers, we encourage you to come forward to share what you see, what you've learned. You will not be run out of town like you were in some of these other circumstances. That's really a shameful way of running law enforcement. That's not the way that we're going to do it. We are encouraging whistleblowers and anyone with information about fraud happening to come forward and to let us know, and we will treat you seriously. We will receive your information. We will vet it thoroughly, and certainly we will not run you out of town like has happened to you in the past.
I want to show some of the vehicles that you've been able to seize, because these people, I mean, they take the money from us, steal it, and they're buying themselves luxury cars. When you are able to hopefully recoup this money, where does that money go?
We are doing everything that we can in all of these cases to seize back, to claw back the ill-gotten gains.
All right, so that money ends up going back to the people. It's very important to distinguish between the levels of prosecution. At the federal level, they have the ability to claw back that money, to seize property, to take bank accounts, and, of course, to use that for restitution. They do not have that ability at the state level, which is something that would have to be adopted on a state-by-state basis. Now, getting back to the situation in Ohio, as a result of this investigation by Luke Rosiak, I mean, they had a lot of people get in trouble yesterday, and the suspension of dozens of Medicaid home health firms, all of which were highlighted in this investigation. Now, together, the state of Ohio, working with the Federal Fraud Task Force, is suspending 50 home health care firms in Columbus that have been billing millions of dollars to Medicaid. And the list of businesses that were suspended were all from this investigation. Most of them were showcased in this series, but there were others that were not even showcased that were suspended as well. This represents more than $322 million billed to Medicaid since 2019. Some of the largest of these businesses were from the Bhutanese refugee series that we read the other day. And Dr. Mehmet Oz spoke about this in the press conference yesterday. Roshan Adhikari's life and luxury was what was largely talked about. And among these suspended businesses, 3 firms, AmeriCare, $128 million billed, Serenity Home Health, $74 million billed, and Medina Home Healthcare, $22 million billed. All of them were owned by Dilly Adhikari, who was found to be involved with these charities that were funneling the money overseas. Others coming from that same story examined the 7 properties that were owned by the one landlord. They had the 288 Medicaid companies all billing over $250 million. And then there was also Merciful Home Health, which was owned by Mohammed Ahmed, billing $10 million to Medicaid. And when Merciful Home Health was visited, that was where the man opened the door and said that he was not an employee and he did not know who the company was or what the company was billing for. But obviously, that was not the case. There was another suspended firm, ZNC Home Health, owned by Isaac Omaoka, and they billed $11 million to Medicaid. They had 93 claims in September of 2018 and then suddenly jumped up to 1,065 the next month. There was an audit done of ZNC. 56% of their payments didn't match up with their electronic records, and the auditor never recommended any repayment of these funds, and ZNC said its employees are confused about why they're being targeted now. Horizon Home Health, owned by Joanna Keanu, had been paid $5.8 million in Medicaid payouts. Also, they have billed hundreds of thousands of dollars a month since October of 2022. Horizon turned out to be based on what was basically a broom closet. There was no door, there was no window. It was just a dark closet inside of a room. Then there was 6555 Bush Boulevard. This was the place where a convicted fraudster was still defrauding Medicaid, even though he was known to be a criminal at the outset. That was Omega Home Health. That was a husband and wife team that were working together, billing $5.7 million to Medicaid, and another business, Confidential Home Health, billing $3.1 million. Both of them suspended. All of these businesses no longer allowed to do any sort of business with the government. And why does my camera continue to not work? I don't know why. Let's go ahead and fix it. All right. Hopefully I can figure out why this is happening. All right, you guys, Black Hat Destroyer is now a monthly supporter over there on Rumble. Thank you for that, my friend. I appreciate it. And I think that will be it. I got to get going, got to get myself some dinner for myself and my wife, and then I will be live tonight on Badlands Media for Only Lands. Before we go, I have one more quick message from our friends over here on Rumble. You guys know it, parents and grandparents, America is about to hit a major milestone. We're coming up on our 250th birthday, and we're going to be celebrating all year, but in the next 2 months, it's going to be the biggest part of that celebration. 250 years of freedom, grit, sacrifice, and the greatest experiment in self-governance the world has ever seen. It's the perfect moment to help your kids understand why this country matters, not just the hot dogs and the fireworks, but the story behind it all. And the Kid's Guide to America's 250th birthday is honestly a great way to introduce those kids to how America began. It'll teach them who the founding fathers were, what it was they risked, and why the ideas they fought for are still relevant today. This guide is going to send them back to the very moment those brave men signed the Declaration of Independence. And when they did so, they knew they were putting their freedom and their lives on the line. It's going to break it all down in a way that kids can actually understand and enjoy. It's not going to water it down or make it feel like schoolwork. So if you care about raising children who know where this country came from and helping them understand why it's worth preserving, you're going to want to grab this. And the best part is it is totally free with this special offer. All you do is pay $2 for shipping and handling. And to pick it up, you can use the QR code on screen, or you can go directly to freeusabirthday.com. That is freeusabirthday.com, and you can easily pick up the Kid's Guide to America's 250th birthday today. Because America's story matters, let's make sure the next generation knows it. All right, you guys, I'm going to go ahead and pass out the gold pills. And let me say thank you to Rise Attire, who says, cheers to a stressful but successful show, brother. 07, you're a legend. If you wouldn't mind, could you share this link with your audience? We thought of you when we made it. National Revival vibes. Ooh, I think I'm already going to like this. Let me go ahead and pull it up on screen for everybody at home to see. I love it. I absolutely love it. Can I reshare? Yeah, can I share this? I thought that there was maybe going to be a way to easily post it, but I will go ahead and pass that out, or I did pass that out, rather. All right, my camera's working. Thank God. My volume went up tenfold. Yeah, that was a very loud video. So let me go ahead and pass out the gold pills and say thank you one final time to Filter Dog. President Trump just revealed he pardoned a man who was sentenced to 7 years in federal prison for fixing his own truck or tractor. Oh, yeah, I'm sorry. I forgot to pull that up earlier in the show. Yes, President Trump did pardon that guy. I think that he was doing like diesel deletes or something like that, which is ridiculous that they would punish people for those things. All right. Thank you for being here, everybody. Good luck. God bless. I'll either see you tonight or I'll see you Monday right here at 5 p.m. for another episode of Red Pill News Live. Until that time, we'll see you.